Well, all right, folks. Hey, how's it going? It's Monday, the 15th of March. And I'm a little bit later than 8:45 than I kind of said I wanted to start at 8:45. But, this right now, I'm not worried about being punctual on time all the time. For right now, it's mostly about consistency, just, doing this every day. So and get used to, making all this stuff happen. So, um, okay, let's uh, let's start the day right. Take a big old sip of coffee. Mm, that's the best. There we go. Okay, so what's on the lesson plan for today? Got my trusty list here that you can see from the thumbnail. I have I still have editing to do. I've got that same video I've been working on, that pot rack video. I did a little bit more last night. I worked on it for about half hour, 40 minutes. I've still got a bit left to do. It's just I it's a good learning experience that I'm learning how much time and effort it takes to edit a video and make it look good. There's a lot of minimally edited videos out there on the internet, and some of them are fine. It's not everything needs to be artistically edited, but I am definitely one for overdoing things. So I tend to put a lot into, at least for me, for my level of my ability level, currently where I'm at, I put a lot into my videos. So yeah, it takes a while. I tell myself, yeah, I need to tighten things up and get onto like a 1 week schedule, 2 week schedule, something manageable like that. I think that's manageable, and then I take 3 or 4 weeks to put out a video. But it is what it is. I'm still very new at this, and things good work takes time. So I would rather have a longer schedule while I'm still learning all this stuff, and then as I get better and I get faster at doing the editing part, then I know that schedule is going to tighten up a bit. So it's good to have goals, but having realistic expectations of meeting those goals versus not meeting those goals. That'll shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you land among the stars or whatever. It is actually something kind of like that. You set your goals really high, and then you don't expect to achieve those goals 100%. But even if you're getting 60-70% of those goals, then you're still doing much better off than you were before, and hopefully you learned something from last time. So yeah, editing. I've got to finish a thumbnail for this video. It's so crazy how important thumbnails and titles are to YouTube's search algorithm. I get it. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. But it's just insane to think about. We got some regular chores around the house. I have to unclog a drain. I think our washing machine drain is a little backed up because it's been overflowing into the garage. So I got to get one of those snake reels and run that through, and hopefully that fixes it, so we don't have to call a plumber and spend more money. Not that I mind, but And then some grading assignments, and then jury duty. Yeah, I got my little jury duty postcard in the mail a few weeks ago, and today is the day I have to go in and report and do all that stuff. I understand why it's important. I understand that it is a duty and a privilege and all that stuff for us Americans to, to serve on juries. And, I do my part. It's just, It's rough because up until 5 o'clock last night, which is the time in this region where you call in, you either call in or you go to the website for the courthouse, and you find out what your reporting instructions are for your group number. And until 5 o'clock last night, I didn't know where I was going to be going. All my plans are kind of up, and I didn't know what time I was expected to report. Fortunately, my reporting is not till 2 o'clock today, which is going to be after all of our distance learning lessons, and will give me enough time to travel a couple towns over to where the courthouse, the Superior Courthouse is, so I can report for that. So, but there's reporting times at like 10 o'clock for some groups. So until 5 o'clock last night, I had no idea whether I was going to be expected to report in the morning or in the afternoon or at noon or anything like that. There's no information. Again, I understand that schedules change and, trials and courts and all that stuff. It's nothing's all ever set in stone until the day of. But, for someone like me who has to plan things out ahead of time, where teaching is a lot like streaming or, any other sort of presentation where you're getting your materials together and you're planning multiple days of multiple lessons over the course of, days and weeks and months. It's really disruptive. I mean, it's no more disruptive than, you wake up one morning and you're sick and it's like, okay, well, I can't go into school today. Distance learning notwithstanding, but it's still disruptive. It makes you put your plans on hold. And again, if you wake up sick one day, it's kind of the same thing. It's the same level of disruption. And so as teachers, we have to be flexible. We have to be able to, take our lesson and say, okay, well, I can't do it this way this day, so I'm going to have to bump it back a day or 2 days or whatever. And I find it so important as a teacher when I'm doing my planning to intentionally build in like days, like a day or two every couple of weeks, or even sometimes, a whole week or several days in a row that aren't specifically planned out. Like I can have a few, quick, easy one-day activities to do for those days if I need them, but I like having some cushion in my planning so that in case stuff like this happens, you get jury duty, that happens. People get sick, that happens. So that if I have to move my lessons around, I have a little bit of wiggle room to do that. And that's just kind of advice for new teachers out there. Don't try and plan every single day. Like leave a couple of wiggle room days in there where you can shift into if you have to. But yeah, just not knowing what the next few days are going to hold. And then those of you who've had jury duty before, you go in your report and then you find out if they're going to need you. You could report and they're like, okay, turns out we're not going to need you. You can go home, you're dismissed. Or you start going through the selection process, the interview process, and it's like, okay, well, all right, now at this point, we don't need you. And all the while you're coming back multiple days, sort of in limbo, like, okay, is this the last day I'm going to be on jury duty? And then I've never been on a trial before. And I know stuff you can't talk about once you get in there, but hey, I haven't reported yet, so there's nothing to talk about. If you do go to trial, my understanding is, you get the schedule and then you kind of know like, all right, well, it's expected to take, X number of weeks. And then you're just kind of, you're just kind of off your job for however long that is. And that in itself is disruptive. Sure. Cause as a teacher, we've got a lesson plan for that. Even if we're not going to be in the classroom, even if we're going to have a substitute, or if it's distance learning and we're just setting things up, assignments up for students to do, it's still very disruptive. And then I can imagine, of course, we still get paid during that time as teachers because we're salaried, thank goodness. But my heart goes out to all the hourly workers who, you get picked for a trial, and yeah, they pay you pennies. They pay you a little bit for your time there. But if you're counting on, your day's wage, and all of a sudden you have to show up for a 2-week trial or 3-week trial, how disruptive is that for one's life? Not to mention childcare issues and transportation issues and all that sort of stuff. And I don't have answers, but it just kind of makes you wish that there was like a better way, a better system. And I don't know what that would look like. I don't know how you would do that, so that, you didn't impact people's lives as much. And I know it, don't get me wrong. I know that the courts and like the judges I've heard, speak before, they seem to be very sympathetic and very, very appreciative of the work that jurors do, and the time off, and that they understand that fine line between, the needs of the courts, which are important, and the needs of individual jurors. So, and they try and be respectful of that. At least that's been my interaction so far. Last time I got called up for jury duty, the judge seemed very, very aware of that. But you just kind of wish that there's got to be an easier way. I don't know what that easier way is. Maybe there is no easier way. But it makes me think about, all of this lockdown stuff. Now I'm not one of those folks who, not to get political or anything, but I'm not one of those folks who, blames government for, locking everything down, killing business and stuff. I mean, it's such a multifaceted issue, and, no one entity or person is to blame in all this. Yeah, there's people who have been put out. There's people who have lost their jobs. There's people who are struggling. And yeah, there have been a lot of things that could have gone better and should have gone better. But that said, a lot of this has also been necessary. So it can be both ways. You can explain it both ways. It's not just that, someone in some government office is like, oh, how am I going to mess with these people today? That's not really a thing. It's maybe a thing in like a comedy movie or something, but that's not really a real actual thing. It's more like people who have their job is to, look out for the public good, trying to make decisions based on what information they have, and trying to make the best decisions to, save the most amount of people or help the most amount of people as possible. But by its very nature, it's going to also hurt some people too, and make a lot of people angry. And a lot of people very, very unhappy, upset by it. So it's just something that's got to be dealt with, much like jury duty. So, and then what else? Shop accidents. I didn't have a shop accident, but safety in the wood shop, in any sort of working conditions around power tools, stuff like that, is obviously for a class, a profession like mine, shop teacher, is very important. It's something that, we don't just handle at the beginning of the year and then, forget about for the rest of the year. It's constant. It's, every couple of weeks we're reminding ourselves of, what's the safety protocol? What's right? What's wrong? What do you do in event of an accident? And with distance learning, we haven't been doing as much of that because I haven't felt that it was really all that in the students' best interest to be talking about specific machines and specific tools that they're not going to be able to use. That seemed, if we were in the shop and we were actually working with, table saw, band saw, chop saw, that sort of thing, yeah, then that totally makes sense. Go over these machines and talk about safety. we talked about general safety, like garage safety, and I, have had to be flexible on the way that I present that because, again, I have students who will never this whole year set foot in my wood shop. And if they don't take wood shop, the second level wood shop, they're never going to actually be in my wood shop class because we'll have moved on by next year. But I don't want to load them up with information that they're not going to need. I want my class to be valuable to them. I don't want to give them useless information. You're useless to their lives, I should say. But lately, I have actually been doing demonstrations here in the garage, and actually turn you guys around. It's kind of dark in here, but I've got my saw stop, my table saw, and it's kind of cluttered up right now. But I've been doing demonstrations. It's locked onto my coffee cup. I've been doing live demonstrations for joinery here in the shop, and mostly on my table saw. And I know that some kids have parents that have got table saws at home, and some will be working on table saws. So I thought it might be a good idea, even if the kids aren't working on it, I'm working on it, to go over, coffee, to go over some table saw safety. Just in case I get some kids who are like, oh yeah, table saw is great. I saw Mr. Lauer use it, but we never really went over what some of the dangers are and some of the real consequences could be for, getting distracted or not following safety procedures or using incorrectly. So I have a video that we're going to be watching today in class. And I'm just pulling it up on, I'm pulling it up right now on my feed. In fact, that reminds me, I need to actually assign this really quick. So we'll be wrapping things up here in just a minute because I will have to start class in about 5 minutes. Okay, I'm actually going to assign that one by one. Ask that question. So a video on table saw safety. It was by, let me pull that up on YouTube there. It's a video, actually a very recent video from about 10 days ago by Andy Bird Builds. That's the channel. And if you haven't, if you're not familiar with that one, he's got 26,000 subscribers, really respectable. So he's a DIY channel, but he had a recent video where he had a table saw accident and cut 2 of his fingers. And my heart goes out to him. Andy, I mean, that sucks. I'm sorry that happened to you. I watched your video, and I understand why it happened. And it just, I'm sorry that happened. If you ever happen, you probably won't see this, but if you happen to see this, then that sucks, and I hope you get better. But anyway, so he has this accident, and the whole video is just sort of like an after action. Like he's talking about the accident, the incident, and what led up to it, what caused this. It was he was distracted. And then, sort of like what to do about it, what to do after, having a plan, like where's the first aid kit, what emergency are you going to go to? What ER are you going to go to? What is your plan for if you do have an accident? I was like, this is perfect for students. So we're actually going to be watching this video today in class, but there are some graphic, not gratuitous, but some graphic depictions of the injury and some x-rays and stitches and some blood. And that sort of stuff gets kind of dicey when you're dealing with school children. Now, in a high school wood shop, there is a higher level of maturity. I wouldn't show something like this to elementary kids. That would be too graphic, too much. But for high school kids, that level of maturity level is, that's actually fairly appropriate. But even so, what I really appreciate about this video is that Andy did a really good job of like for the few seconds before showing any of the graphic depictions, he puts a warning and says, hey, skip to this if you don't want to see this, which is great because then I'm able to use that and be like, hey, kids, skip. There's the warnings here. I encourage you to watch the whole thing, but if you don't want to see the gore and the blood, then skip when it says the warnings, or close your eyes or something like that. Because I feel it is important for kids to see, at least a little bit of reality of what can happen, not just with a table saw, but with power tools in general, because they may end up using stuff like this in their lives. But even with all that, I still send an email home to students and parents, just kind of explaining what's going on. What's the purpose of this? Why are we watching this? It's not meant to shock or offend. It is a defined purpose. And, I've been teaching for 12 years, 12-ish years, 12, 13 years. Yeah. I've developed a pretty good intuitive sense of, when notices need to go home to parents. You hear every once in a while about these news stories about, some teacher in some district gives kids an assignment and it's like really, it's gratuitous or, insensitive or something like that. And it makes you kind of be like, yeah, you probably should have thought of that, or, notified parents, or ran that by your, by somebody first. And so that's why, out of kind of an abundance of caution, I'm not worried about, any sort of backlash with something like this, because it is important. It is important for kids to get a realistic depiction of what can happen. It's not just like you get a little scrape or a cut. Like, we're talking like you potentially lose fingers with this, and that's an adult reality. And those are the kind, we say that we want to allow kids to make mistakes and learn from their mistakes, except for the big mistakes. We don't want them to lose fingers or eyes or stuff like that. And it's unfortunate, but they've got to at least understand what can happen so that they can develop that sense of avoidance. Like, hey, I got to respect this machine because I've seen what it can do to somebody. And hopefully that's not firsthand knowledge, the way that they gain that. So anyway, it is 9:15. I'm actually need to start my class here. So I'm going to sign off. If you're watching, thanks for watching. And I will see you guys later. Hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully a little earlier tomorrow.